Hi, my name's Tanya and I'm a chartered physiotherapist, and one of my special interests is helping people with dizziness and balance problems. So I thought today I might share a little bit with you about a condition called BPPV that some of you may have heard of. It's a condition that gives you episodes of really severe spinning vertigo, or for some people it's not spinning, for some people it's like the room slides side to side or up and down. But it can be mildly disconcerting for some people, but for other people it can be so severe it's quite debilitating. Generally your symptoms tend to be related specifically to movement. So BPPV stands for benign paroxysmal positional vertigo. I nearly got that wrong there. And to explain that, because that sounds quite complicated, benign just means there's nothing really serious or sinister going on. Paroxysmal means it comes and goes. Positional means it depends on what position that you are in. So you may find it's consistently as you turn over in bed to the right, or it may be consistently as you look up to the ceiling or something. And vertigo is the spinning sensation that you get in your head. So it's actually not as complicated as it sounds when you explain what each individual word means. So this is a problem that occurs in the semicircular canals in the ear. So here's my giant ear. And in the inner ear here, you've got this little structure. If you see my other video on why does the room spin, you'll have seen this. There goes the eardrum rolling away. So this section of the inner ear is actually where the section that gives you your hearing. So your sound waves are absorbed through here. And this section is called your vestibular apparatus. So this is the part that helps to control your balance. So there are different structures in here. In the central chamber, you've got structures that can detect when you move forwards or backwards or change in speed. So going faster or slower or going up and down like in an elevator. But then you've got these three semicircular canals, and they're your body spirit levels. So they detect movement of tilt and tip of your head. So if you move your head up and down or turn it or tilt it, you've got these three canals in each ear. So you've got 6 between the 2 ears that mirror image each other. So as I tip my head this way, look at this canal here, as you tip your head, the fluid in that canal is going to move around the canal, and as you tip your head back, it's going to move back in the other direction. And there are little bundles of hairs right at the bottom of each canal that get pulled one way or the other, depending on which direction the fluid's moving. And little nerve endings at the bottom of those hairs tell your brain which direction you're going in, and your brain matches up your right and left ear so that it can match up all these different combinations of movements and know exactly what you're doing, whether you're moving or whether you're not moving, and what direction you're moving in. So very, very clever apparatus. Just tilt this up a little bit more, so that's a bit better. So what happens in BPPV? Well, in that little central chamber right in the middle here, you've actually got a structure that's meant to be there. It's like jelly on a plate, and on top of the jelly you've got these little crystals of calcium, and they're there to weight the jelly down. So they're meant to be there. This is not something that isn't meant to be there. And as you move faster or slower, the jelly on the plate is moved one way or the other. So that's how you detect change in speed. What can happen though is sometimes those crystals that's in that central chamber can get dislodged, and they end up in one of these fluid-filled chambers. Essentially, that's like getting sand in a bottle of water. So what normally happens when you move your head and the fluid moves and pushes the hairs, that still happens when you've got this condition. So you can still detect when you've turned your head one way or the other. The problem is when you've stopped turning. So when you move your head, the fluid moves, and then you stop moving, the fluid stops moving. So you haven't got any message going to the brain that you're moving. But if you've got these little crystals inside here, they will take longer to settle. So if you've got a bottle of water with sand in it, when you tip the water up and back again, this water will stop moving quite quickly, but the sand continues to move. So while those crystals are still moving in the fluid, the little hairs at the bottom here are still getting a message to say you're moving, even though you're not moving. So why that makes you dizzy is because if you've got this problem in one canal, say you've got this problem in a canal in your left ear, and you haven't got the problem in the right ear, then when you turn your head, both ears will tell you that you've turned your head, but when you stop turning, this ear is going to be telling you that you stopped turning, but this ear, for the whole time that the crystals are settling, will be telling you that you're still turning over. Your poor brain can't interpret that. It doesn't match up. It doesn't make any sense. So it doesn't know whether you're on the move or not. And your eyes are tuned into that to know which direction to move so they can focus on something. So your eyes end up kind of moving in all directions, and that gives the appearance that the room is spinning. So that's BPPV, and that is only one cause for dizziness. So if you get vertigo, it's not necessarily that condition. If you look on my website and look at information on vertigo, you'll see there are quite a few other fairly common conditions, which I'll probably do a video on sometime. So how can you treat it? What I'm going to do is show you on my little model that I've made here. I had a lot of fun making this. So this is one giant semicircular canal, and I'm hoping if I get close enough, you can see the little crystals in it, okay, the little calcium crystals that aren't meant to be there. Okay, so when you move your head, so if that's a semicircular canal facing upwards in my head, and I tip my head that way, you can see those crystals moving down, okay, and you can move them all the way around. So how the treatment for BPPV works is you're basically just chasing those crystals around the canal until they go back into that central chamber where they're meant to be. So depending on which of these three canals the crystals are in, you do a series of slightly different moves. Okay, so the most common canal to be affected is the posterior canal, which is it's hard to negotiate it when it's not inside your head. It goes at an angle like this across your head, and now I'm looking in the mirror, I can't do it. That kind of angle diagonally across your head. So it picks up movement when you tip your head backwards and turn it a little bit. It's a bit of a combination of movements. So very commonly you will get symptoms if you're, say, doing changing a light bulb in the ceiling, or if you're looking at something under a sink trying to get something out of a low cupboard, or trying to sort out the U-bend of a sink. That's a common place where you'd have trouble. Or if you lie back down in bed and then roll over, that will quite commonly cause the problem as well. Typically the symptoms will last for maybe 20-30 seconds, and likely to last for more than a minute. And actually, if you stay in the same position for long enough, the symptoms will just disappear until the next time you do that movement and those crystals get shifted again. So what we're aiming to do with whatever maneuver we choose is for those crystals to move just in time around the canal until eventually they go back into the central chamber and disappear. Okay? So depending on what angle the canal is, we do a different series of moves. And we can do maneuvers to check which canal it is. So if you remember earlier on, I said when you've got this imbalance between the two ears, your eyes don't know which way to go. Your eyes will move in the direction of the canal that's not working properly. So if it's one of the horizontal canals that are roughly at that kind of angle in your head, when you get your symptoms, your eyes will move horizontally across or sideways. If it's the posterior canal that's more diagonal, when you get your symptoms, your eyes will move quickly off to one side, but slightly diagonally as well. And then if it's very, very, very rarely, you can get the anterior canal and your eyes will actually move downwards. So when we're assessing for it, we actually have a look, if you can keep your eyes open, at what direction your eyes are moving in, and that will tell us which canal is the problem canal. And then different moves depending on which canal is affected. The most common one is the posterior canal. So what I'm going to do is just show you the maneuver that you could use to clear the canal at home. So if you've been to see a physio and another practitioner that has done the Epley maneuver on you, and it's really worked, and then the problem recurs at some point in the future, and you think, oh, how am I going to get this treated again? Do I have to wait on a waiting list to see someone? You could try out this maneuver first at home. It's a good idea to do it when you've got someone else with you, so that if you do feel unwell directly afterwards, you're not on your own at home. You've got someone kind of sitting with you to help you out. So very often when you have this vertigo, you also feel quite nauseous as well, and occasionally people are sick with it. So you don't want to be going through the maneuver without somebody with you. And I would suggest, if you've never done this maneuver before, I would always go and see a medical practitioner the first time, so you know what to expect. If you've had the treatment before and it's worked, then this is something you can try yourself to self-treat before you book in to see someone. You might be able to get it better yourself. Okay. So if, for example, your symptoms are when you lie down and roll over onto your left side, then the chances are it'll be one of the canals on the left, most likely, possibly the horizontal canal, most commonly the posterior canal. So I'm going to show you this Epley maneuver, which is for the posterior canal. I might just need to move this a little bit so you can see my head when I do this maneuver. If you're doing it yourself at home, then put a decent chunky pillow behind your hips. If you're doing this in a clinic, then the clinic bed will either be tilted down so your head's lower than your body, or the practitioner will have your head off the end of the couch. But obviously that's not going to work if you're trying to do this yourself. You want to make sure, if you're treating, for example, if you were treating the left canal, you want to make sure you've got plenty of space on the right-hand side of the bed, because you're going to be rolling to the right. So you sit with your legs out in front of you and a pillow right up behind you here, so that when you lie down, your head will be lower than your shoulders. It's really important you have that angle right. Otherwise, you're not going to chase those crystals around the canal. They'll just kind of move in slightly the wrong direction and still end up in the canal. So for left BPPV, you start sitting with your head turned 45 degrees to the left. And then lie yourself down as quickly as you can. Just checking you can see me. I don't know if you can, so I'm going to have to check this video later. And you will feel your symptoms come on within a couple of seconds of lying down, or maybe even as soon as you lay down. You don't want to move at all until those symptoms subside, and I'd give it a good 30 seconds. So even if the symptoms only last 5 or 10 seconds, give it a good 30 seconds to make sure the crystals settle with gravity to their lowest point. It may take occasionally more than half a minute. Just wait until all your symptoms are gone before you do the next move. The next move from there, you'll stay lying on your back, but turn your head 90 degrees so that you're actually faced 45 degrees to the right-hand side. And again, just stay there for a good 30 seconds. You may not get many symptoms on that move, but give yourself a good half a minute anyway in that position. When those symptoms have settled, so I'm not going to do the full half minute, the real trick with this is you need to keep your head turned to the right. So you're going to roll over onto your right-hand side, and you'll actually end up with your face 45 degrees in towards the couch, which of course you can't see now. You'd stay in that position for about half a minute or more. Again, make sure you wait until all your symptoms are gone. And then from there, keep your head tucked in and bring yourself up and just sit on the side of the bed with your head down until you feel like everything's settled. Right. Let's bring myself around. So if I do that for the other side so that you can see my face this time when I've turned over. So if I was doing that for the right-hand side, lie quite close to the right side of the bed, turn my head 45 degrees to the right and lie back over the pillow. When everything's settled for at least 30 seconds, turn my head 45 degrees to the left. Again, when everything's settled, don't lift your head up off the pillow, keep your head down and roll onto your side until you're nose down into the bed. So your head's still 45 degrees to the left, so it's pointing down into bed. Keep that position for a good half a minute or more if you need to. And then keep your head forwards and sit yourself up. And again, give yourself plenty of time for everything to settle before you try to get up again from there. So that's your way of just chasing those crystals around if it's the posterior canal that's the problem. There are different movements to do for different canals, but that's the most common one. And like I said, if you've never had it treated before, I would definitely get assessed first to make sure that is the problem. And I would do the manoeuvre with a qualified practitioner the first time, but this is quite a good technique to use if you know that it works for you. So if you're going to see somebody about it, if you can sort it out yourself straight away. Okay, so that's BPPV for the posterior canal.